Hello, my dog lovers. I'm so happy to be here today because we have the one and only Dr. Lynda Loudon. Hi, Linda.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
And instead of me just kind of going through citing the bio and reading it, I will ask you to introduce yourself and tell our community who you are because you're one of my, you're really like you belong in the amazing veterinarian who I trust fully. I would trust with my life, and I would also trust you with the life of my dog, which is actually a lot to
Well,
say.
thank you.
I
Honor.
You're welcome. So tell us about you. Who are you in
I'm
2026?
in 2026. Yeah, it's a journey, right? In 2026, I'm a mom and wife. I have a beautiful husband who's also a vet, and I have two amazing boys, 11 and 15. So, that's my biggest job there. And I'm also an emergency veterinarian. I've been an emergency veterinarian for 24 years, over 24 years. And I'm also end of life practitioner. I've always been the vet who was really important for me to be there when their lives depended on me and I could save them. And then if I couldn't save them, I wanted to be the one to be able to give them the most beautiful transition because that was as important to me.
Mhm.
And, yeah, and I live out on Long Island, with my family and my 2 dogs, Zane and Peter Parker, big Spider-Man fans over here, and,
I love
and
it.
we've yeah, we've got a bunny, a turtle, and a dove, and 5 chickens, and the dove and the bunny and the turtle all live free roam and, love each other. It's just a cute little family of lots of different animals.
Wow. So your husband is a veterinarian.
Yeah.
It kind of leads me to the next question. Even though I have some questions prepared, I was thinking that must be curious. So do you talk shop at night or when you come from work or not?
A
Tell
a
me. Do
little
you work
a
together?
little Sorry?
Do you work together?
No, I would drive him crazy, I think. So, we have not worked together, and we've always done different things, like, he loves being a general practitioner. He loves, knowing a family really well, like, he's the type of vet that, a family will walk in and he'll know all the names of their kids, who's at college, and, he's just got that kind of a memory and compassion, and he's just made to be a general practitioner and follow that puppy all the way through, to the end and be there for that family. So I'm I've been the vet who wants to be there quick, move on to the next thing, not that I don't love that relationship part because I do. It's important to
Mhm.
me, but I also I like to be in where things are high pressure. It's where I'm most comfortable. And so we have different likes and needs when it comes to our careers. So working together has never, we've talked about we both love surgery. We might when he retires, you know, open up a little shop where we could do sparing spays and vasectomies, right? Cuz we need more of that. So that's some way we might work together in the future, but we don't talk shop a whole lot because we realized early in our careers that we were better not talking about it all the time, right? Because I'd be like, "Well, did you use pain meds? Did you do this?" Like, I could be annoying like that because 'cause I'm very type A when it comes to my job, and Tim's, like, laid back guy, and I'd be like, annoying. So we worked it out over our career to be like, "All right, what can we talk about together? What's not gonna, get us annoyed at each other because of how we both handle our careers?" So it's been a journey for us to figure that out and respect each other, in that because it's hard, I think, when you're doing the same thing type of things, even though we're a little bit
Mhm.
different.
Mhm.
Uh, it's and you don't wanna come home and talk about work a lot of times. You need to talk about other things, and so we've learned that over the years of the sweet spot for us.
You said that you're an A-type personality, but from what I know and how I know you, I actually think that you're one of the one of the softest and gentlest people. So is there anything that I don't see now? Because you know, um, I dare to say that I have a fairly good sense of people, and sometimes I feel the people who are kind and caring and soft and gentle actually often think that they don't give themselves enough credit, right? They always see what they could improve and maybe always have an excuse for others why they're that way. But then when it comes to them, they are quite firm. Do you think you're firmer to yourself than you should be? Or
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. And I think that's what I mean by type A, because in general, I'm not a type A kind of person, right? I'm kind of a go with the flow person.
listen,
But in my career, I hold myself to a really high standard. I always have.
no.
I've been very tough on myself. And so I want, especially when a life is in my hands, I want everything to be in line. I want to make sure I'm crossing my T's and dotting my I's. So I have been very strict with myself in my career. So yes,
Um,
you've read me right.
this is a line that kind of goes through all the chats that I've had with my colleagues. And I can't even tell you how much I appreciate you coming here today and everyone else who's come before you, because it gives me a sense that pretty much all the people that I've talked to really care about their job and are really holding themselves to high standard. And sometimes I feel, would it be, uh, is the selection process for veterinarians and the schooling actually the right one? Because, when we go through schools, like we are taught that if we don't know something, we fail.
Hmm.
And then we kind of take that to real life. But in real life, there's a lot that we don't know and a lot that we have to learn. And not knowing it is not necessarily failure. So I just kind of find this kind of inner anxiety in almost all of us to see, I hope everything is going to be right. Everything is going to be 100%. While it's never possible, right? So are
Mm.
there any areas where you just kind of learn that not knowing everything is okay? And maybe any examples, any stories that you have?
Yeah, I always had interns for most of my career. I taught interns. I was, led the interns, and I think I learned through teaching them, because I had to let them know. Listen, we get out of school, we don't know, you know, we're not going to know everything. We're going to have to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes. And so I kind of learned through teaching them these things that, okay, I need to be a
Live?
little bit more like that. Right. And I think as you get older, I feel like, you know, this stage of my life, I welcome that. Whereas when I first came out of vet school, I fought it, right? Like I would be my books would be open. I'd come home from a 12-hour shift and I'd be opening my books and seeing could I have done something better and like just I was crazy, right? And then this stage of my life, if I don't know something, I welcome it as an opportunity for growth, genuinely. And
Mhm.
I look to others in our field to learn from them. I don't wanna compete with anyone. I don't want to, try to one up anyone, right? But when you first come out and you lack that confidence, that's when you're kind of like, "Oh, I've gotta be up here. I've gotta be on my game because I wanna prove I've got something to prove." Well, now I don't feel like I have anything to prove. I just wanna serve, and I wanna grow, and I wanna learn, and I want to be there for people where I excel, I wanna show up for them in that, but
Mhm.
that's been a journey, right? We all have to go through our journeys and in order to get there, and I think this stage in my life, I'm really comfortable with myself, and
Mhm.
I'm not as hard on myself. I think, "All right, Linda, you've done a good job." I've had that angst my whole life, like, "Am I doing enough?" I feel, I'm God put me here for a reason. I always knew that I
Yeah.
was here to help his animals. I was born knowing it, and that was such a gift. but it was almost like an angst, like, am I doing enough? Am I showing up? Am I doing what I'm here to serve? And now I know that I have. Could I have done better in some areas? Yeah, we all could. Um, but it's not as much of a pressure as it used to be.
Hmm. And learning is exciting, right? Not knowing at certain point of life is really exciting because it makes us feel like we are still discovering the secret rainforest or the mountains or the underground. Like it's so fantastic to actually discover something that we didn't know and now works and we can help with, right? Is there any particular area that you really um, treasure as a part of your discovery process? Any particular discovery that you've made or that you kind of came to that is useful now?
I think getting to know myself more and not being afraid of what other people think has been huge for me. It took me a while to get here, and that has allowed me to be more, and I'm still figuring it out, but more of my true self.
Hmm.
And to what that opened up for me as an especially as an end of life practitioner is I was able to find my inner knowing, my way of connecting, my strong connection to dogs that I had when I was younger. And maybe I lost a little bit of that because my head was too in the books. And it's come back as I've been more open and willing to share, um, and appreciate that, end of life. I feel the animals that I'm going to before I get there in a home euthanasia. Um, I feel that I'm connecting with them, and I've seen proof from them. Like I get to houses and they act like they know me and they were excited that I was coming. And
Man,
so I felt that early in my career, but I was too afraid to vocalize it because I had a reputation to uphold. I was, this got to be this well-known ER vet on Long Island, and I didn't want anyone to think, oh, she's crazy, right? And then as I opened up to myself and I became more comfortable with myself and I wasn't competing with anyone anymore, I was like, oh, now all of these um, traits of myself, my gifts kind of that I maybe kept to myself, I've been able to share more, and they've just made me a better version of myself, a better vet, and been able to show up for people and animals in a different way than I could earlier in my career.
I know that one of the gifts have been the Dog Mom Society,
Mm.
and I've had the pleasure of meeting your society members. And it was really lovely. And tell me if anyone wanted to join your society, what is it about? Not tell me, but tell the community because I already know. And how has it transformed your life and the lives of dog guardians and dog moms? And
Yeah,
why dog moms? Why not dog moms and dads? No, that's a question.
I know. Well, I've
I feel
always
left out.
I know, and you're welcome. You're welcome. But I I started it as dog moms because I've always felt a need to help other women in particular, with whatever it was, right? I love being in circles where women come together to lift each other up. And that's kind of what I wanted for dog moms. Because being in the ER, I could see a lot of the decisions that were being made that got the dogs into my ER. And it was very frustrating for me. I wanted to get ahead of that and help them make better decisions for their dogs. A lot of those decisions were recommended by vets who were well meaning. And I got frustrated. I said, okay, how can I get to these dog guardians earlier? And that's where I created a dog mom membership. And it was really a place where guardians could get trusted information. They could have access to me to ask me questions once a week. We'd have trainings where we'd go over the key decisions they need to make for their dog's health. And it has evolved into this beautiful community of women who show up for each other through all different things going on in their lives, not just with their dogs. And we also have women's wellness in there too, so that we're supporting our health as well as our dog's health. And I learn every single week. That's what's so beautiful about it. It's not, me in there saying this is what you should do and this is what you shouldn't do. It's a community
Mhm.
of really intelligent people who are showing up for each other, and I show up because I want to serve them, but I also want to learn from them. They go above and beyond for each other, for their dogs, and it's nice to be in a place where people understand that. Right?
Uh-huh.
Because a lot
Right.
of people don't understand why we put so much effort into making sure our dogs are healthy and happy, and we're giving them the lives they deserve because we appreciate how much they're giving us.
Yeah, I still, all the years that I've lived with dogs and have helped them, I still feel like I haven't grasped the full magnitude of their impact on us and humankind. And also, it's just so difficult for me to comprehend that a species could be so perfectly evolved to help us
Yeah.
and
Guide it.
to give us exactly what we are missing, which is the unconditional love and acceptance and feeling like we are the number one for someone, right? Because it's sometimes hard. Like, if you look at families and dynamics and partnerships and all that stuff, it doesn't come as, I know it's a cliche, but I'll say it unconditionally. But dogs have evolved in such an amazing way that it's really for me hard to grasp. Like the level of perfection, even with their imperfections, they're still perfect, right? And that's just mind blowing. But you have a full house of many different pets and species.
Mhm.
How do you think get along? Like your dove and a rabbit and dogs and cats and
Yeah.
how tell me more about this arrangement and what is uh what is positive about it and what is challenging because I want the full picture.
Yeah. They, it's really sweet. I never thought I would want a rabbit. I always would be like, why do people have rabbits and just put them in a hutch? And, what's the point of that? And you're just cleaning up
Mm.
after them. And my Sam wanted a rabbit for so long. I was like, "No, we're not getting a rabbit. I don't need one more thing to take care of, right?" But in my career, when I was working 12 hours, 14 hours a day shifts, I didn't wanna come home. So we kind of limited our dogs in a portion of our life, or animals. We only had, like, a couple dogs at a time. But now I'm in that stage where I'm like, "Okay, I'm not in the ER 14 hours a day. Now, um, I have space opening
Well,
where I wanna go out in the morning and take care of the chickens, and I don't mind cleaning up after the bunny's litter box and things like that. It feeds me actually, whereas during my career, it would have taken from me because I was already giving so much.
yeah.
And now we got this bunny because we went and looked at these bunnies, and one had a corneal ulcer, and, I was like, "All right, Sam, we have to take that bunny. No one's treating that poor bunny's corneal ulcer." So that's how I ended up getting this bunny, and I was like, "All right, we're not gonna put him in a cage like everyone else. I'm gonna litter train him, and he's just gonna be free roam." And so he lives in, my son Sam's room most of the time, and then he gets out, once or twice a day for the whole house. Can't leave him in the whole house all the time because he will find a wire to chew. My husband will tell you how many thousands of dollars of wires
Oops.
this bunny has
Right. The Wi-Fi's not working or something.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
calling him at work, "Babe, I have a podcast this afternoon and the internet's out. What am I gonna do?" He's like, So he comes home that night, looks under, Bunny chewed it. I was like, "Oh, damn it,
Oh,
Bunny."
so I wasn't far from the truth. That's so funny. I should, yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, so
I am a psyche,
but they're really
finally.
cute.
Just kidding.
Yeah, I know.
Uh, I know that you've mentioned, if I'm correct, that you've seen a huge increase in hemangiosarcomas in the emergency practice and so on. Like, uh, do you have any insight to that, why it's happening, and or point of view why it's happening?
I really feel and, there are the studies that back this, that pesticides, especially environmental pesticides, play a large role in that, and I feel like that is definitely a huge factor in it. My own dog, Joey, who got hemangio, I was doing all the other things right, you know,
Mhm.
uh, but you can't control your neighbors and what they're spraying, and I
Right.
happen to be in an area where they spray for
Uh,
everything. They're
uh,
spraying for mosquitoes, they're spraying for every type of bug that might be a nuisance to them,
every
and
part of nature, right? That might be nuisance for them.
yeah, it's crazy. And, we also had our yard sprayed once. This was years ago. It was, like, 2 years before he passed away, and I really feel that had an impact. It was my husband's one of the dads he knew said it was organic and natural, and we just trusted that it was, and that was, my error that I didn't, like, look at what it was.
Mhm.
And when I looked back after he passed away, it was not organic, natural spray. So I think I really do feel that had an impact on him.
Right. Man.
He was a huge grass eater, and a lot of the families I'm seeing in my euthanasia clinics, they're also doing a lot of the right things. They're not over vaccinating. Their dogs are intact. They're feeding fresh food diets. And there's that one thing, they are spraying their yards. And I ask, I just, you know, when I can, when it's appropriate and when I can do it in a gentle way, just to try and get insight into why this is happening.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I get
Yeah.
at least a couple a week that are
I know
Hermann.
it's multifactorial, right? The process of aging sometimes makes the immune system less effective, and knowing that these chemicals are like hooligans at the soccer game or hooligans at the concert because they're disrupting the flow of metabolism. It's definitely one part of it, and I agree with you. And there is enough evidence and documentation that this is the case. Um, as you may know, we've been working on a project which is called hormonehealthfordogs.org, and spaying and neutering has proven to be an elevation of the luteinizing hormone after dogs get spayed and neutered, has been seen as another cause that uh, can cause increase in malignancies, and we're just kind of addressing that. And I know that you're really keen, and I'm so glad that you're actually, when you are in quotation mark going to retire, that you're not going to retire, but you're going to do hormone sparing spays and neuters. And I just couple of weeks ago, I've talked to Dr. Masse from the Philippines, who's been neutering actually and spaying ovary sparing space, doing ovary sparing space from the flank approach. So she actually basically doesn't do midline incision, much easier to do it in the flank, just separates the muscle fibers
That makes
and
so
does
much
them as
sense.
fast as the regular space and neuter. So this is really hopeful, and I hope that I'll be able to connect you, and
Yeah.
we can create this group of hormone sparing base and neuters or vasectomies. Anyway, I know that there's an abundance of topics that we could talk about. And instead of me continuing to ask you questions, I'd like to ask you if there's anything that you'd like to share with the audience, if there's anything else that would make you feel like you've been able to give this to everyone who's watching and listening. And also, I hope that it would also serve as this amazing release, right? Of something that you've been kind of holding and feeling, I wish I could share it with more people. Like, what is it? And what would you like to share?
Yeah. You know, one thing I would love to share that I think would be a release, especially for people in our space, in this holistic, integrative space, is that, when we really focus on our dog's health and we want to do everything right, that could also bring a lot of pressure, right? To make all the right decisions for a dog. The fear of regrets,
Uh-huh.
the regrets we're still carrying for dogs. Like my Joey, I did neuter him at 6 months old or 8 months old because back then I didn't know any better, right? We all have some of those stories that we bring with us. And then we sometimes will put that on the next dog. Like, oh my gosh, there's that fear of making another mistake that might affect their longevity. We use the word longevity a lot, which I think can
Mhm.
also put pressure because people are like, "Well, I wanna make sure my dog lives as long as possible. That's my job." And it's not really our job. Our job is not to get as many possible days out of this dog. This dog came for a reason. It's here with us for a specific reason, whether it's to get us on a different path, get us further along the path we're on, learn something that we need to realize in ourselves. I've learned something from every single dog that has been with me on this journey. And that's what it's about. And being fully present with these dogs every single day, getting on the floor with them, realizing the magnificence of this relationship we have with them. And when we're too much in our head, like I was in vet school at the beginning, we miss out on some of that.
Mhm.
And even after a diagnosis, if we get a terminal diagnosis in our dogs, sometimes we're up in our head too much. Like we're talking to every vet possible, every holistic practitioner, trying to get all the right things and do all the right things to extend our days as many as we can. But then we're missing that sacred time
Uh-huh.
that we have,
Uh-huh.
those sacred moments, the silence and the presence. And so I would encourage your guardians just take that pressure off because we don't have as much control as we think we do.
Linda, that's beautiful. Just the concept of the animals coming to us, teaching us the lessons, and that basically their soul, on some level, decides when it's time to go, and maybe when we are okay to be on our own, and when they're gonna leave. Like I've kind of, on some level, I've seen it that way, and I definitely could name the lessons that each of my pets, animal friends, has taught me. But it's a really great reminder, and I hope that everyone will take this with them from this interaction and from this talk, because I know, in fact, that we all put too much pressure on ourselves to make sure that we do the best we can. But even if it was longer, if our animal friend's life was longer, it's never going to be long enough for most people, with some exceptions. And I'm saying that because I've heard some people not being exactly that kind, and they should probably not have animals because sometimes they get a pet and then they realize it's an inconvenience, and it's a difficult one. But for most of us, it is that way. It is that way, that we put too much pressure on ourselves. You're absolutely right. So they'll decide, and we'll do our best to create the conditions for them
No.
having good quality of life. And it's not even about length, but it's about the quality, and it's about how much love they get, right? As well.
Yeah. Yep. The fullness of the days and not the number of the days, right?
Mhm. But it's nice, like it's natural and human to wanna want to have them for the longest time possible. So that's,
Mhm.
it's a good goal, but I definitely think that we put too much pressure on ourselves, and maybe even on our animal friends.
Yeah.
And that comes down to euthanasia and terminal stages of life. I would like to stay with that topic because there's some people who make decisions too fast, some people who make decisions too late. What is the optimal time, and how do people know? Because you and I know that people often ask, how do I know when is the right time? And we all have a different answer, but I would be really curious about yours. And what do you say to people when they say, how do I know when is the right time?
Yeah. I think one real key indicator is when you are all of the pharmaceuticals and all of the remedies and all of the treatments that you're giving your dog through palliative care, say, or cat, whatever pet it is, and that you're just adding on things to keep that heart beating, right? To keep them alive. Where if you ask them, are you enjoying life? Is you can look at them and see that that
Uh-huh.
glimmer is not there anymore. They're just, they're just alive, but they're not living. And then we can step back and say, okay, this is for me and that's not for them. We do, if we are fully present and we allow it, when we say you will know, you will. I truly believe that. You feel it.
Uh-huh.
But some of
Uh-huh.
us, it's part of our journeys. And I've had dogs where I've held on too long, right? But if you do hold on too long, that's part of your journey. And you did, and your dog is okay. They transitioned when they did, and they're not going to hold a grudge and say,
Mhm.
"You didn't make that decision fast enough for me." Right? That was part of your journey. You held on a little bit too long. You learned from holding on and
Uh-huh.
learned what else have you held on to in your life for too long? And what do you need to work on there? So that was
Mhm.
part of your journey. If you made the decision a little bit too fast, okay, it was going to happen. I don't think a dog is, or any animal is like, I had 2 more weeks in me. You made it too fast. I don't feel that. And I feel that whenever you do make the decision, okay, that is part of your journey. And I really do
Mhm.
feel like you have less control of that. And I think that's the problem people have is they feel like they're ending that life, right? Rather than giving peace. And so making that decision, sometimes they will hold on too long because they feel like they're playing God.
Uh-huh.
And it's just a switch of the perspective to say, I'm not taking that life, I'm giving peace. And if my animal is truly suffering and I've tried all the things, I've tried to
Mhm.
support them and nothing's working anymore, that's an indicator. One time I do feel I will go into a home and I'll say, nope, we're not ready, is
Uh-huh.
arthritis, mobility.
Uh-huh.
Because I feel like sometimes it's just education. They don't know that there's other things that they could try. Maybe the vet didn't, speak about it soon enough, before it got to a later stage, that they could have done things to help with mobility. So some of those I'll go in and say, no, there's more we can do. Let's see.
Then
And I've taken
sure.
dogs a year out and then gone back and said, okay, we've done the things. Um, but if you've done all you can and you're, you know, your dog just doing one more surgery or adding one more drug is not going to increase that quality of those days, and stop. You don't have to keep it's not up to you to get more days out of that animal if they're at their end and there's no more joy. And I tell some people just keep a little journal of their days and then look back at the end of the week. Are there more bad days than good? Are
Uh-huh.
there more bad times than good? And if that is a regular pattern, then maybe it's time to think about it. Um, you know, I being in the ER, I did see people who worried about suffering a little bit too much. We
Uh-huh.
feel like it's our main job not to let these
Yeah.
animals suffer.
Yeah.
And I don't worry as much as most. And what I mean by that is there's a lot we can do to control their pain. If I have a 2-year-old, like an example is an 8-month-old puppy lab was hit by a car and came into me.
Yeah.
was broken. It had a broken leg, multiple broken bones. One eye would have to be removed. It was in shock. It was a mess. But I looked at that puppy and I could fix him.
Mhm.
And I have the pain meds to keep him comfortable, right?
And
To get him through that. But that family was so honed in on, "I can't let him suffer, I can't let him suffer." And
yeah.
just looking
Mm.
at that instance, it was too hard for them to say,
It's complicated. It's so
right?
complicated, and I really feel there's so many different facets of this decision making. But if I can kind of pitch in and distill it from my perspective, I do think that letting go is the greatest expression of love. And the reason why I'm saying that is really personal. When my dog Sky, who was 16, decided to go, and there were some injuries. We just kind of like he got hit by a suitcase just a month before at an airport by a porter, kind of like throwing a suitcase in his head. And then, you know, he got injured and he wasn't well. And then he recovered. And then he was 16. So he didn't have that capacity. And I was traveling and my partner called me to come back that he was not doing well. And I called my colleague up and I said, can you put a catheter in? And I'm flying in at this hour, and I remember like if it was yesterday, I walked in and I basically had the syringe of ethansol ready, and I had I gave myself half an hour, then I gave myself another half an hour, then another half an hour, then I thought it has to be done. And pressing the plunger of the syringe is just so surreal that I don't know whether you've ever felt that we exit our body during those situations. Just kind of like it's not even us who's pressing it, but we know that if we don't, that it's actually not good. Then that if we do, it's an expression of love. Being there for our animals is one thing, but being there fully throughout the whole life towards the end as well, and just kind of put our needs aside. Because if I really decided for my own kind of sake, I would hang on. And at the
Mm.
same time, I knew that it is not possible. So for everyone else, check in to see if it's your feeling and your emotion or if it's really about your animal friend, and try to move yourself as much to that. And then we can see a therapist, we can talk to friends or family, we can go through that grief. But hanging on too long, I think, is not optimal for them. But as you said, and this is so important to remind that sometimes just certain degree of discomfort, accident and so on, and we think, oh, we have to end the suffering because it's too much. But as you said, we have the pain meds, we have all that, and that's why it's really worthwhile to actually go through the, I don't know, few weeks of suffering and controlling the pain. And then we have a dog that can enjoy life and can probably give us much more for many years. And it's just, and also it may be the root of least regret. But I also, Linda, tell me, and I'll be really frank here. I sometimes think that people don't think of an accident or something happening and they don't have insurance, and they would come to you and they would have a dog that got hit by a car and say, I don't want them to suffer.
Mhm.
But is it really, I can't or I don't want to pay the fee for the procedure or for the treatment, hence I'm going to come up with, I don't want them to suffer? How often do you think it happens? Because I think that is the elephant in the room as well. We need to really acknowledge that part, that sometimes people just don't want to do something, or you know yeah, they made a mistake, they didn't get the insurance, and now they're in a bind and they feel bad about it, but they don't want to be really direct and honest to say, hey, I can't really pay for this.
Or they don't want to deal with the recovery. I've seen
And
that.
the discomfort, right? Suddenly it's not a fun pet, but it's a liability or it's
Oh,
a responsibility or something like that. So
yeah,
tell me more about that.
that's definitely played a role. Before we move on, I just want to pinpoint like what you just said about Sky was beautiful because that just showed the difference, right? An 8-month-old lab who, if you asked him, "Do you want to fight for your life?" is going to be different than 16-year-old Sky who's
Mhm.
had his life,
And
right? So that's where you can compare the two and really say, if I could ask them, do you want to fight for your life right now? A 16-year-old is not going to say, yeah, I want to fight through this
Mm.
like an 8-month-old would, right? So that I just wanted to touch on that. But yeah, I saw that so much in my ER where lives were decided over finances. And so my husband and I, before kids, put a lot of money because I would not euthanize a dog I could save. And so we did spend a lot of our own money fostering animals, bringing them home, fixing them. And then I started Healing Haven Animal Foundation, my nonprofit, to support animals whose lives were on the line and that either they were stray and didn't have finances behind them or their owners had to make a euthanasia decision due to finances. So that
Mm.
I took that out of the equation of my career because I had my nonprofit. So if I had an animal come in, like that 8-month-old lab, I could say, if you can't afford it, I will cover it, but you just have to give me the permission to, right? And I still had people say no. I ended up with a little poodle of my own because she was 8 months old, and I offered to pay and try her surgery because, her bladder was ruptured after hit by a car, her uh, urethra was torn, and I said, "Let me just try. I probably can't put her back together," but we were able to put her back together, and they still didn't wanna deal with the after effects. They didn't want a broken dog. They went out and got a new puppy the next day. So I ended up adopting.
And it's hard not to have some sort of sense of it's hard not to have some sorts of response or reaction about that, right? But if it comes, I'm not an insurance agent, obviously, and I don't promote any insurance companies because I know that they can be helpful and also complicated. If we could advise a new guardian, someone who's adopting a puppy, to get an insurance or not, what are the pros and cons?
I would advise insurance. Um
Yeah.
And I would at least advise to the insurance where it's if something big happens, right? It's not the yearly vaccines. I think that gets very expensive, and I don't recommend yearly vaccines, right? So, I don't think you need that type of insurance. But what is it called when they have insurance just if there's like a catastrophe, if there's trauma?
Accident insurance or something,
Accident.
emergency
Yeah.
insurance, right? Yeah,
That I
yeah.
think is really worth it because you don't know. I've been able to save dogs because they had insurance and they could spend the $6,000 on an emergency, a life-saving surgery, um, where they otherwise wouldn't have been able to make that choice. So I do recommend insurance if you can do it.
And veterinary care has gotten so much more expensive now with the corporate ownership and everything. I see sometimes the bills and it makes my eyes spin because it's been a few years since I was in practice and
Yeah.
I can't believe actually how expensive it's gotten. So everyone, if you have a dog, especially a healthy dog, get an insurance. Make sure that you get
And
emergency care at least. And I think it's time for us to actually go to the second part of our little talk. And some of the listeners and viewers already know that I have these conversation cards, and I've gotten into habit of pulling them out during our talks with my colleagues, and you'll be able to draw from left to right, inner, outer, and I will not exclude myself from answering the questions too, because it would be unfair to put you on the spot and then just kind of go, I'm not going to answer that.
good luck.
So, well, what was that?
I said, "Good luck with that one."
Well, let me. So, so you'll always go first, and I'll definitely do my best to answer them too, and see what comes out. I'm going to shuffle them a little bit, so you don't think that I'm not a really good shuffler, but I can I can manage to do something. You can see that I'm not a gambler.
No.
I spent probably a total of $5 in Las Vegas, and I've been there quite a few times
Yeah, me
for
neither.
conferences and different things.
I don't
Yeah.
like losing money that way, it makes me mad.
Oh my goodness. So you can see left or right, inner, outer. That's
Okay, I'll
probably
go
easiest.
inner, your left.
That's my left,
Yeah.
inner. and there's two sides, so we'll read both of them.
Okay.
Your husband will like this as well, and he's probably going to listen. If you had to redesign the institution of marriage, what would you alter?
What would I alter? That's a good question. Like the actual institute of marriage? I think that I don't know how I would change the institute of marriage, but I would say if I was to go back and think about marriage before I met Tim and decided that he was the one, I got lucky because he was the one and he's just amazing. And I think it was divine intervention for me and Tim to come together, but I would be more conscious about not thinking about what they look like, what I want expect them to look like and what they should um do or if they'll make money or anything like that. I mean, I married a guy who had more student loans than I did, so I didn't obviously didn't think through that one. But really to when you're deciding on who you're going to marry and have a partner with, one, I don't really feel that you have to do things the way everybody says they have to be done, right? I think it should be around what you feel is right for your life. Do
Uh,
I need to be married or not to be with this partner?
uh,
Um, and really not follow a path that everybody else has done. Really think about what's right for you. And then when you meet people, how do they make me feel about myself? What are their values? Like, I think I would really, if I come back around, I'd pay more attention. I got lucky because Tim is exactly who I need him to be, but I could have went any other way because I wasn't so intentional back then, right? Um, and making it your own and not conforming to the norms, right? Or feeling that you have to do things because other people think that might be the way to do it.
Society, right? And conformation and conformity. That's the English word. Um, Thank you. I'm sure that Tim will be very happy to hear that. um, you know, the institution of marriage is kind of set in our society, and I'm fine with it, even though I was married and now I'm in a partnership. And I don't think there is like a general difference with one or the other. But what I think people should actually really focus on is to educate themselves about communication, also what is coming, and maybe doing like good chunk of therapy before they get married, because we all seen Disney movies and we've seen, the forever happy after, and
Mm.
it's not that way. And it
Wow.
marriage or partnership is a institution of growth. And we really we parents take prenatal classes and all that stuff, and we go to the gym and practice and train, and then we hurl ourselves into marriage thinking that everything else is going to be perfect. And I have a friend who is a wedding photographer, and I've asked her several times. I said, how do you feel that at least 50% of these people will kind of split up and they spend like huge money on the wedding and photographer and everything else. And at the end, they're often not ready to actually enter this connection and understand it and also do their work. And so I would actually really like, or I would instill marriage or relationship education and communication into high schools as one
Ye
of the most important subjects there will be. So that would be my
That's so great. Yeah,
alteration.
yeah.
Uh,
And one other thing, I think when you go into marriage, it can't be about what I want, right? Like, what do I want from this person? What do I need from this person? It has to be, what can I give to this person? How can I help them grow? How can I grow with them, right? Instead of I. It's no longer I. And, you know, I think Tim started there. It took me a little while to get a little bit less self-centered about that, where it really is true part.
I think what happens in relationships in general, people react. They wait for the other person to finish their sentence and maybe not even that, and then either defend themselves or say why their view is more important. But I
Mhm.
think that the best marriages are and the best partners are able to empathize and almost like enter the other person's world to understand and
Yeah.
maybe then process and communicate whatever they need to say. It's not like, you're right, I'm wrong, or vice versa, but
Yeah.
it's about the ability to really put ourselves aside, at least if it was for a few seconds or a minute or whatever time is required, and say, wow, this must feel ABC, or I can understand you, right? And that's actually something that I think is super valuable.
Or
And
maybe I don't need to have an opinion about everything you say, you know?
yeah, 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 exactly. And
Get
our
some
dogs our dogs
impulses.
kind of are. It doesn't apply to our connection with dogs because it's completely different. They're always there. They kind of are. This is the funny part. What do you think of that idea? The dogs are actually on some level kind of self-focused and self-centered, but then they're so giving and so caring and so making sure that we know that we're their number one, that we can erase that little self-centeredness, right? What do you think?
Mhm. Yeah, I think so. I think they just wanna be with us so much. Like, I look at my shepherd, Zane, who just all he cares about is being by my side, um, that he'll do anything to get there, right? He'll go through a wall if he needs to
Yeah,
get
yeah. Next question.
let's do it.
Let's see. Let's do it.
Just
These cards are so hard. And at the same time, I go, good for you. Like you came up with them. You'll have to answer them too. Um, when you look in the mirror, what are you most afraid of seeing in yourself?
judgment, I think.
Judgment. Tell me
Yeah.
more.
I think that I and it's still a work in progress, but like you said before, like I was very hard on myself to be perfect. No one can be perfect, right? But perfect mom, perfect wife, perfect vet, perfect dog mom. It's exhausting, right? And I've
Told me.
been striving at it my whole life, and I think and even my looks. When I look back at my pictures, I've been like, "What was I worried about?" Right? Like, it's it's a little, um, it's a little shallow, but I I remember being like, constantly judging everything about myself. This could look better. I could do better. And so that's what I'm trying to let go of in this stage of my life is just to look in the mirror and give myself some credit, give myself a positive affirmation, replace some of my old narratives about myself, whether it's my looks or, what I'm doing, and just be a little bit more nurturing of myself. I've nurtured everybody else. It's time for me to nurture myself a little bit more.
Mhm. We are our own harshest critics, right? And looking in the mirror is kind of interesting because I for a few seconds I said, I don't really know what to say, and then it came like a flash. When I'm looking in the mirror, I don't want to see my father. And one of
Right.
my very dear friends and classmates who is amazing, and I really, really appreciate him and love him. He has known me for a long time, and we went through vet school together. And he's now, well, he what he does is rhino species rehabilitation, and he actually they sent rhinos to Africa from the Czech Republic, and they sent several dozens already, and they also have been instrumental in forming the North African white rhino that is extinct. They have embryo that they froze together with the San Diego Zoo. And so he's like an amazingly accomplished person. And I don't really know why I'm so lengthy about this, but we just had a little reunion with our old group, and he was taking him around and saying, look, like he looks like his father. I go like, oh no, like, don't do this to me. But I think that we need to come to terms with partially being like our parents, but I would just say version 2.0, hopefully, of our parents, because they lived in a different environment, grew up in different conditions, and they also taught us, and they've been instrumental for us becoming who we are. So I'm grateful for that. But it's hard to see it. Sometimes I look at pictures, I go, really? Like, oh, I can see it. It drives me crazy.
I do that with my hands. My hands are my mom's, and it annoys
Ah.
me for some reason. But
It's just really, and my sister has the same thing with my mom. Like she looks identical to my mother, and she's identical, and she really doesn't like that someone says that. So there you go. So we have
yeah,
we have two more questions.
okay. I love it.
See, I told you we're gonna have fun no matter what.
Yeah. Yep.
Left or right, in or outer?
Right outer.
I knew that you were going to say outer for some reason. Which of your friends do you envy the most?
It's a hard one for me. I don't know why. I
I'll go
envy you.
first. I'll give you some
I
time if
envy
you
your
want to.
friend doing the rhinos.
What is that?
I said I envy your friend with the rhinos.
Yeah, I can introduce you if you come to the Czech Republic. Yeah. And we also, I'm not sure whether you know, there's a conference in South Africa this fall, and there's a safari happening with Dr. Sully Armstrong, who is a rhino conservation. That's the word that I wanted to say. Rhino conservation officer, and we'll be going in the bush and just tagging
Wow.
rhinos and doing a whole bunch of things. So I'll tell you more about it afterwards because I'm super
Well,
excited. I'm going to speak at the
nice.
conference, and we're going to the safari. Um, you know, are you ready for that?
No, you go. You go. Let me think a
Okay?
little
I'll
bit.
go first because I want to give you some space to think about it. I've met some really amazing Gen Zers, meaning Generation Z. My nephews and nieces, and also some of my team members, are Gen Zers, and they're 20, and they're full of enthusiasm, and they're young, and they're gonna live all the way to 22nd century. And I go like, oh my goodness, I'm so envious of not being 20 because it would be so great to kind of see beyond my
Mhm.
lifespan expectancy. And so I do confess that every time I see them and I talk to them, I'm super excited, and they just kind of infuse you with this enthusiasm. And you can bring the wisdom because they're sometimes silly and they don't see the whole picture. But
Mhm.
but yeah, I so would love to be 20 again with the experience of the 62-year-old for sure.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. With the knowledge and the
Mhm.
experiences. Yeah. No. I can't honestly think of anyone specific that I envy. I think in this, I envy like people now that surprises me that back then I would have looked at like, oh, their life is so simple. Like what are they doing with their life? Now I look at, my aunt in Scotland who's, one of my people. She's my godmother and really close to her and I look up to her so much. She's had a huge impact on my life. And she's had a fairly simple life in Scotland. She's lived in the same house her entire life. She grew
Uh-huh.
up in that house. She goes to the same church her whole life,
Uh-huh.
same friend circles. And younger me would have been like, Aunt Helen, go out, see the world. Like, I mean, she did see the world. She did travel too, but she stayed single. Um, and my younger self would have been like, you know, did you live enough? And now when I go visit her, I think, God, what a great life you've had.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
She kept everything simple and never felt like and she'll say this, right? She never felt like she always wanted more things or more, a bigger house.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of my, life was striving for bigger things because I still had that comparison, right? Like my friends have the big house. I should have the big house. I got the big house. Now I'm at this stage. I'm like, I
Mhm.
don't need a big house,
Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh.
But she kind of always had that knowing, and that I envy. I envy that people who already got that. They didn't have to go through the journey I had to. They just kind of were. um, content and, fully present in their lives instead of always feeling I want more, I need more, um,
Mhm.
especially when it comes to things or possessions, things like that. So I envy the simple lives these days.
That makes complete sense. And I have to learn more about your aunt. Your aunt, right?
Yes. Yes. And
Um, there's another kind of entity that I really envy often, and that's my dog Pax, because he has such an amazing life and he doesn't need to have any of the human burdens and the human complexities. So I really want him to have that kind of life, and I'm really happy for him. And at the
Mhm.
same time, I sometimes feel like I want to experience that lightness of being. You know, it's it's lightness of being, and sometimes
Yeah.
challenging if there's a dog that they don't like or whatever else. Someone pees on their post. That's the problem that they. So last question. I feel like we just started, but there is a certain time limit. My editors are willing to kind of process this, and they're actually the Gen Zers who are really amazing. So, hey, you guys, hope you've been having fun looking this over. What do you worry about in the middle of the night?
Mm. My kids, my
Mhm.
children. Um,
Uh-huh.
am I doing everything that I can be doing to protect them and guide them? Um, and I think I overthink that a little bit. I think because I had a mom who couldn't truly show up for me because of her circumstances, I've kind of went to the other end of it to try to
So,
make sure I'm not that, right, for them. And
yeah,
so I
goodness.
do will wake up, did I talk to their teacher? Did I do this? Should I have, did they get enough protein today? I do overthink mothering a little
How
bit.
old are they? How old are they?
11, 15.
11 and 15. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's super important time, right? But some people say, and psychologists say, that you can raise them only until 4 or 5 or 6, and then it's done. So now
Yeah.
you're, yeah, but it's a difficult environment, and I can see why you as a parent worry.
Mhm.
I haven't had human kids, even though I have nephews and nieces who are like my kids. What do I worry at night? It's such a difficult question. Like, the natural thing that I kind of go to is Pax and his well-being and making sure that his needs are met. And at the same time, what do I worry about at night? What worries me a lot is seeing situations that my friends or sometimes even family gets into, and that's health related. And
No.
I know that there are solutions, and I know that they could do better, and I know that they would not need to suffer. And at the same time, it is very hard sometimes to access them and just be gentle in presenting certain source or information for them to accept it. And so I worry about all those people who sometimes I see and they complain about certain things. And at the same time, I see that they're not really open and they're not ready for whatever reason. And so I worry about them a lot because I'm not sure how you feel, but I sometimes feel like if I was standing at an intersection full of people and doggies and we're waiting for the green light to cross, and then randomly one or the other person or dog tries to step in the traffic while there's a car coming, and I try to pull them back, and sometimes they don't hear me, they don't see me, sometimes they kind of tell me to not to do that, and I see them hit. And those are the situations that kind of compare with the life experience, because people don't know what they don't know. And sometimes they're so closed and they believe myths that are not true. Like, I have a friend who's been suffering for years now with, pain in shoulders and neck and headaches and migraines. and she would do great on hormone replacement therapy. Now I'm not an MD. I can't really go there, but I say, hey, luteinizing hormone, and it can cause different changes. And she's heard from an old nurse friend that estrogens will cause cancer, and she's not going to take it, right? So she's going to, for the next 20, 30 years, she's going to suffer. And
Yeah.
it drives me crazy. So now this has been a long explanation of my worries at night, but they're real, and I don't really know how to handle them internally because I see these stories evolve, and,
Yeah.
what do you do?
I
That's
get
the
that.
next level of
Yeah.
human evolution where you can just let go, right?
Yeah. And who was it? Mel Robbins has her last book was Let Them.
Mhm.
And I I listened to that book because I felt like I needed to, because I was exactly where you were with my brother, who actually I just lost these holidays.
Sorry
And
about that.
thank you. My mother-in-law, my father-in-law, everyone who's like closest to us, you want them to make the better decisions because you want them to live as long as possible, right? We need them with us, and we want them to see it the way we see it, right? And I
Yeah.
feel that over the last 6 months to a year, I have let go. I've realized that that's their journeys, that they have to come. I can give my tidbit here and there, and I was like this, and it was affecting me. And even when I would talk to them, I think I was getting a little bit annoying, right? And I think that now that I've let go of it, our conversations are lighter, and I'm not trying to control as much. Um, I do like to control,
Yeah.
and it
I Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's coming to the thing of we share what we know and offer it up, and then if they don't accept it, that's their journey, right? I
Yeah,
couldn't talk my
offering
brother
is,
into quitting
shining the
smoking
light
or, you know,
shining the light
that was
at
his
the hole
journey.
in the ground, right, on the path, like shining the light and making
Yeah,
sure they know there's a cliff, but not really necessarily, go,
holding
it's
on.
like, I agree with the let them to a point, but let them when they're doing something really harmful, or let them when they're about to drop off the cliff. Let them, so I think that it's kind of a simple solution for the person who is on the other side. I mean, it's simple solution for us to say, just let them. That's their business, their soul, right? I think, as almost everything in life, the truth is somewhere in the middle. If Mel called me today, I'd say, you know what? I think it's just way too simple. It is not as simple. It's easy
Mm,
to say, but there are situations that are just not.
yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just not there yet.
No, I think you're right, there is a middle. It doesn't mean that we don't try. It doesn't mean that we don't offer up our help,
Uh-huh.
but it's also a letting go of it's ultimately their decision to listen or not, to take the advice or not, and we can't
Mhm.
control their decisions. We all make our decisions that shape our destiny, and it's hard to let go of that because we want to see the best for those that we love the most.
We want the best for those we love the most. That's a beautiful closure. Now,
Mhm.
before we end, I want to ask you, where can people find you? How can they join your dog mom society, and how they can find you for any reasons they may think of?
Yeah, well, go to Dr. Loudon K, the letter K and the number 9, Dr. Loudon, drloudonk9.com, and you can find all our information there. I'm also on Facebook, Dr. Loudon. Um, yeah, if you're a dog mom out there, or a dog dad that would love a supportive community, we're here for you.
Thank you, Linda. It's been so much fun. I really
Same.
had a great time, and sending you a virtual hug. I hope that we're going to see each other soon. And please, can you tell your four-legged and two-legged and winged family to say hi, and also to Tim
Yes.
to say hi for me as well. And thank you. It's been absolute pleasure, and we'll talk soon again.
Sounds perfect. Thank you so much.
Take
This has
care.
been great.